Hello everyone, I'm Adam the Fanatic, and welcome to the second installment of Nerdy Fanaticism. Today I'm going to be talking about Star Wars the card game, Fantasy Flight Games' now defunct LCG series. Please keep in mind that this is not a review. I believe that reviews should always discuss both the game's strengths and weaknesses, whereas this is just going to be me briefly fanboying about a game that I love. For those who don't know, LCG is Fantasy Flight's brand name for expandable card games that don't rely on blind buys. Two people buy the same exact pack, they get the same exact cards. Thanks to this, I actually have a complete collection. Most of the sets are still pretty cheap if you want to get into things even now. Though, good luck if you're trying to find a copy of Allies of Necessity. Regardless, the LCG model meant that there were no commons or rares. You never had that feeling that a card was made weaker just for the sake of being a common. And on top of that, they never had to hold back major characters to keep them as rares. Indeed, in the core set alone, which covered 4 of the 6 factions, you had Luke, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Leia, Han, Vader, Palpatine, Tarkin, and Boba Fett. Then in the first large expansion, Edge of Darkness, you rounded out the last 2 factions with characters like Chewbacca, Lando, and Jabba the Hutt. On top of that, power creep wasn't nearly as much of an issue as it typically is with these sort of games. Now, that's not to say it didn't exist, but it was definitely much slower. Even cards from the core set still saw tournament play at the end of the game's life cycle. The original versions of Han and Luke both had their place in certain decks, and core set Palpatine was always a solid choice for the Sith. Deck building was very different from other games. Instead of picking individual cards that went into your deck, you instead picked a minimum of 10 objective sets, which each consisted of 6 cards. 5 cards that went into your standard command deck, and 1 card that went into its own objective deck. This forced you to take good cards with the bad, and forced players to learn to play around their weaker cards, but the game also gave players plenty of tools to do just that. Unlike most Magic-style card games where you only draw 1 card per turn, you would instead draw back up to your hand size, typically 6, at the start of each of your turns. This gave you a lot more control over your hand and what came out of your deck. Combat is a bit too complex to get into in this short segment, but suffice to say that it had a lot more decision-making than the likes of Magic, Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course, they had a ton of expansions, as one would expect of Fantasy Flight. There were 5 large expansions, plus 6 sets of thematically linked small expansions known as cycles. Each of these brought new ideas, options, and concepts to the game, not only making it larger, but also changing it in different ways. Beyond the gameplay, there's also the fact that the designers had a lot of love for the EU. That's Expanded Universe, not European Union. The game started before Disney bought Lucasfilm, and the first few cycles had a lot of characters from the games, novels, and comics. Kyle Katarn, Tycho Kelchu, Kian Farlander, Zan Izard, and Grand Admiral Thrawn, just to name a few. This did slow down a lot when Disney bought the brand, and they even introduced a number of Disney canon characters. However, it never completely stopped. Even the final set included a little bit of old canon love through the likes of AT-88. There's a lot more I wish I could go into here, and if I ever get into doing tabletop game reviews, I'll definitely go into full detail there. I adore this game, and I regret that I didn't live close enough to any tournament locations. But, on the bright side, I was able to get a complete collection, and even have this custom painted case thanks to Shannon Franklin, a local painter. If you're interested in trying the game, I recommend looking on Tabletop Simulator. I actually made a couple of mods for deck building and playing on there, complete from the core set all the way through to the Alliances cycle. I also run a small Discord server specifically for discussing the game and coordinating play. Links are in the description below. Thank you for listening to me ramble on about how much I adore this game. If you enjoy card games and deck building, you'll definitely want to come back next week to see my review of Tales of the Deck by 1-Bit Factory. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.